the clerk to lead us into a short prayer as we start our meeting.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Let us pray. Almighty God, who in your infinite wisdom and providential goodness has appointed the offices of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and just government of humanity, we beseech you to look upon with your abundant favor these your servants, whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of such important trusts in this land. Let your blessing descend upon them here assembled, and grant that they may, as in your presence, treat and consider all matters that shall come under their deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the good of those whose interests you have committed to their charge. Amen.
Thank you, Clerk. I'd like to request the accounting officer. You introduce yourself and your team.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Alfred Okoto Kidi. I'm the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Water and Environment.
And the accounting officer?
Yes. Okay, yes, go here.
My name is Flavia Wadua. I'm the Undersecretary.
Is your microphone?
Yes, sir.
So that you're captured?
Morning, Chair and members. My name is Flavia Wadua. I'm the Undersecretary, Finance and Administration.
Morning, Chair. I'm Mr. Oriama Charles, Assistant Commissioner, Internal Audit.
Good morning, Honorable Chair. Engineer Joseph Oriono Eyato, Commissioner of Raw Water, also holding the fort for Director DWD.
Morning, Chair and members. I'm Merisa Angono, Assistant Commissioner Accounts.
Morning, Chair, members.
Is your microphone pressed down?
Morning, members. I'm Atwebembile Des, Assistant Commissioner of Human Resource Management, Ministry of Water and Environment.
Morning, Chair. My name is John Katerika, Principal Procurement Officer, Ministry of Water and Environment.
Morning, Committee. Anthony Ogwang is my name, Accountant.
Thank you, our witness. And we have our technical team to introduce themselves.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, honorable members. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tumwebaze Arnold, Accountant General's Office, attached to this committee.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ruth Uwizeye. I'm an economist attached to this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Stephen Wandera, Principal Auditor, Office of the Auditor General.
Thank you, Chair, and morning, members. My name is Samuel Musana, Senior Principal Auditor, Office of the Auditor General, also Manager, Parliamentary Liaison.
Good morning, Chair and honorable members. I'm Inspector Chamula Bijanat, CID attached to the committee.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I'm Detective Sergeant Mrs. Anasan, CID Officer attached to the committee.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Jean Kabibi. I'm a technical assistant attached to the committee.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Emau Mikaya, a technical assistant attached to PAC.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Detective Assistant Inspector of Police, Oloch Michael, CID Officer attached to the committee.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. My name is Gilbert Ainomjisha. I'm the clerk to the committee.
Thank you. Can I have the members of Parliament, honorable members, introduce ourselves?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. I'm Nawat Rosemary, Member of Parliament, Amudat District.
Good morning, Chair, honorable colleagues, our guests. Michael Tsime is my name. I'm a Member of Parliament from Barara City.
Thank you, honorable members. My name is Ken Pipi Ujara. I represent the people of Chua West, Kitgum District. Substantively, I'm the Deputy Chair of PAC, but I will be the one chairing this. But I also want to say that the chairman might join at some point. He is still out a little bit. So he has requested that we start the meeting. I'd like to say that you're most welcome, accounting officer and your team. I know this is not your first time to appear before just a committee of parliament, and more so before this committee. Always what we expect from you is for you to be truthful and succinct to the point. This is not our invention as Parliament. It is the Auditor General report that is before us, which we are going to go through one by one to see what has happened in terms of how you've been, utilizing your resources. Parliament appropriates this money, gives it to you, and then they also follow the implementation of the activities according to what you have budgeted. So this is the purpose why we're here today. There may be other issues that will come which may not be necessarily embedded in this report. We hope you'll also be able to respond. Others may be in terms of your final accounts, which will come to before you. It may not necessarily be captured by the Auditor General. So we hope we should be able to respond as well and see how we can clarify on some of the issues. Yeah, other than that, you're most welcome again, and I would like you to brief the committee on the issues of COVID-19 and its effect on the operation of the ministry. We know you are very key as a ministry in addressing the issues of COVID-19, especially the provision of water and the issues of environment. So we'd like to hear from you. Also, we want to understand whether the supplementary budget, which was passed by Parliament the other time, you happen to benefit, your ministry happened to benefit from it, since your ministry is very key in the provision of water, which we have been asking ourselves to wash our hands using water and sanitizers. So I think you're most welcome, Accounting Officer. Most welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Fellow members of Parliament, Public Accounts Committee.
Can we have some order? If we have some order, please.
Please. And the technical team. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you for accepting our prayers. Because of other engagements, we had to request for a postponement a little bit. And we really want to say thank you for listening to our prayers, and also thank the committee for the guidance that you continuously give us, and also for holding us accountable to make sure that we are doing the correct things. When it comes to COVID, Chair, the most immediate impact is that the utilities, that is national water and umbrella authorities, have actually had their revenue drastically reduced in terms of collections. The billings are going on, but then the people are not paying. In some cases, we have seen drops of between 50, others going to 70, others going actually as high as 80% in some of the umbrella organizations. So the amount of money they are collecting has drastically gone down. We have also seen actually slow down in the pace of implementation of works because of the standard operating procedures that has to be put in place, and the contractors and the consultants have to use the existing staff, but then because of the standard operating procedures and some precautions that were introduced, this has resulted into a little bit of slowdown in work. We had one unfortunate instance where a consultant actually cancelled because he said, I cannot travel to Uganda now, and the time available, I won't finish this job. So he used the force majeure clause to cancel the contract. In terms of the releases to the sector, I would say the last quarter, we only got money for salaries and part of pension and gratuity. And even the third quarter, it was a very small amount of money released. So this has really resulted into accumulation of arrears, especially for the multi-year projects. And we expect actually a number of these contractors to charge us interest on delayed payments, because literally they're coming almost to 6 months now. These people have not been paid. Some of the activities that we had scheduled, like the National Tree Planting Day, we had a program to plant at least not less than 40 million trees in May in one day, and it was supposed to be a national event. That had to be shelved because we could not maintain the social distancing, and some contracts have delayed in terms of implementation, but we also see a lot of degradation picking up because people are using this lockdown to invade the wetlands, the forests, etc. In as much as COVID is bad, I think on a positive note, Chair, it has made Ugandans to embrace hand washing with soap, which used to be at a paltry 34% countrywide. But now it has gone up, so we believe this will show in the figures, especially for the waterborne diseases, and hygiene figures should be a lot better. But I think it is also an opportunity for Ugandans, especially in the construction and consultancy business, to come up with JVs and subcontracting for a number of these activities. While we'll say that COVID also, we got the problem with the rising water level on the major lakes and rivers that resulted into floods. Lake Victoria, Lake Choga, the shores of River Nile, and a number of places actually had floods, and we also had landslides in the mountainous areas. The very unfortunate instance in Kasese, where we lost lives because of flash floods. That actually has also taken a toll on the ministry. Chair, we did not get the approved supplementary for this because I know Parliament appropriated some money. I think it was the last week of the financial year, and I think because of the timing, it could not, because there was, I think, a proposal to send for this rising water level and about 45 billion, which it was not possible to come. But generally, we did not get money for COVID interventions. We rather use whatever little money we have, and also with partners, and we did extension to a number of quarantine centers. We also provided some sanitation facilities. We also use our bowsers and put some tanks, especially in the vulnerable communities where water is available to the vulnerable people. And we adopted a no disconnection policy for all the customers so that people should have water, which is also taking a toll on the utilities. So, Chair, that is briefly what I can say about COVID-19. Thank you.
Is there anything from members you want clarification on?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yesterday, the Minister for Finance laid on table the list of accounting officers, and I think he has retained this position, so congratulations. Mr. Chairman, I would like to find...
He had to come to your committee here for vetting.
Another committee. Mr. Chairman, I would like to find out from the accounting officer, because this COVID needs a lot of water. People are being encouraged to wash their hands from time to time, frequently. But in some districts, the boreholes are broken down. I don't know what you have done to help the local governments to repair some of these boreholes, because they even call us, the members, to help them repair. Personally, I've repaired some for them, but they keep breaking. Then on the floating island, you've talked of these rising water levels, which has caused landslides and floods. What about these floating islands? Are you still removing them? Are they over, or they are still there, moving towards the dam and causing power shortages?
You were not disrupted with
No, it's okay. Yes.
I was told you come from the north, so you're not very you're not very near about that kind of sound.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Chair. It is true there are a number of broken down boreholes, and in our submissions for support towards COVID, our emphasis was to ensure that people have water and clean water for hand washing. Unfortunately, we did not get that money, but we had provided for money specifically to repair boreholes. And in the third quarter, we actually, the ministry communicated to the districts that the grant that they have, instead of doing new boreholes, they should now prioritize the repairs of the broken ones, so that at least we have more people accessing the water. But in this year's budget also, we provided for repairs of broken boreholes, but the money that we expected, we did not get the full amount, but at least it's something, at least about 30%, Joseph, about 30% has been provided in this year's budget. So if the release do happen, we should be able to go and repair some of the critically broken down boreholes. The floating islands, yes, it is a menace, and this is because of the rising water level, but because also of human activities. And a committee was set up by Cabinet Interministerial Committee, and the task of removing the floating islands was given to the Minister of Defense, the Minister of Works, and the Minister of Agriculture, together with the Minister of Water and Environment. Since the first one hit the dam and caused that shutdown, we have continued removing them, and we are doing surveillance and monitoring them so that we attack them before they come to the dam.
Okay. I think that's very critical, the issue of these broken boreholes. We are all affected by it as members of parliament. You need to do something about it so that, and by the way, some of the monies that we also put back, you remember the 20 million? We had ring-fenced it for the repairs of boreholes, but I think the district task force decided to utilize it the way they so let's try to prioritize these issues of broken boreholes, and then we see how it goes. Honorable, do you have anything? This COVID-19? We can proceed to our main audit queries. Yeah, thank you, accounting officer. Why don't we go to page 5, which is page 3 of this yellow book. The blue one, the blue one is page 5, and the yellow one is page 3. You didn't budget for your NTR. You collected and there was no budget for it. What is your comment about that?
Chair and members, this is a problem that we have addressed to the Minister of Finance because the system that we use for budgeting, the program-based budgeting system, does not have provision for us to capture NTR. I wrote to the Accountant General, I wrote to PSSC so that they can provide for it so that we are allowed to budget and it is captured. And I think this is something that finance has to happen, and I think even last year, when I appeared before the committee, it was also an issue. And we also requested the committee to help us, so that they really need to fix it. They need to fix it. It is a system problem.
Is it true, Accountant General?
Committee, most of the other entities that have been coming have it, the NTR budgeted for, so I don't know what exactly is facing Ministry of Water, what challenge they're facing, but most of other entities are budgeting for it. So maybe if
I think it's the same system.
If the problem is specific to Ministry of Water, maybe.
It is the same system. You see,
can you provide for us evidence that you have written to the accountant?
Yes, we have the letter. We have a copy of the letter here. Did you bring it? A copy of the letter.
The letter that you wrote to the ministry, to the accountant general.
Where was it submitted? They were actually brought separately this morning by our SAS.
You submitted copy of the
letter? The letter, yeah. Can you find out where?
Can you find out where you placed it? Because we need to see the proof that you actually wrote, because otherwise your system will not be fixed. Have they responded, the accountant general? Because
No.
here is from the accountant general office. What did you write?
I wrote, and I also had a meeting.
When did you write that letter?
I don't remember the date. I also had a meeting with the accountant general, and I brought this. You see, this came about when they changed the system of this appropriation in aid and whatever, whereby, because previously we were collecting and people were using them at source. So they said now everything goes to the consolidated fund. No more using what you collected at source, except a few institutions that were allowed to, and those are the ones that are actually budgeting for them. So for those of us who are not allowed actually to use that source, that function was blocked.
Is it true that other institutions have been exempted from these transfers?
Like the CAA, Civil Aviation Authority, even NFA, and I think
Yes, Ruth.
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarification, there's a difference between NTR and AIA. For AIA, they are the ones who have been budgeting, and it has been reflecting as part of their approved budget. But for the non-tax revenue votes, this money doesn't come back to the votes. It comes back through indirect ways. So it doesn't form part of their budget as a specific item of NTR.
Then how does it become an audit query?
I don't know. Maybe the auditors can clarify.
You know, the law is very clear here. Yes.
Like this clarification. Some money was collected as NTR, which they did not budget for. Now, when it goes to the consolidated fund, what do you call that money? Because for you, you have not collected, you did not budget for NTR, and yet you collected some money. What name do you give to such monies?
Chair, let me clarify that. The NTR they collect, maybe you need to find out who collected the money. It could be URA. If it's URA that's collecting it, it forms part of the total government resource and it's allocated to the institutions.
But I thought all the money is collected first go back to the consolidated fund.
Yeah, it's all collected from the entity, but the money that actually comes back to the entity, that's appropriation in aid. For this case, it's NTR. It may not directly come back to Ministry of Water, but it will form part of the total.
How is NTR dispensed? Because NTR is supposed to be utilized by the entity that collected it.
No, that's the difference between NTR and AIA.
And AIA?
AIA is spent by the entity that collected the revenue.
The NTR is what?
Chair,
yes.
On this particular NTR, First of all, there should be confirmation. You should have attached a schedule indicating those collections by Uganda Revenue Authority on account of the entity. So that it helps us. I've seen new breakdown of this NTR. You can give reference to note 7 on page 21. You see that note?
Yes.
Page 21 of your accounts. It's note 7.
This one.
If I may ask, who is Flavia? Who could Flavia Waduma be? You are the one. Good morning. You, of course, I realize you are the one who signed.
Can you use the microphone, please, if you are responding?
Honorable, I was doing it on behalf.
That's a question you are going to have to answer. I don't know who get. Accounting officers are designated. And it's a constitutional obligation. And it is described so in the Public Finance Management Act.
Yes.
So you can't purport to be one when you are not. That notwithstanding, this puts you now into line to answer these questions. Because my assumption was that you are the accounting officer during that time. Nonetheless, that NTR, Mr. Chairman, it is true, it differs from appropriation in aid. This one is sent to the consolidated fund, and the entity cannot spend it, of course, without a reverse appropriation. However, the challenge that you have, you need to indicate, you need to attach a schedule of those collections, because I was looking at that note 7 on page 21 vis-a-vis your trial balance. Do you see your very last page? The very last page of your accounts. The very last one. The very last attachment is your trial balance. Do you see it? Now you see those first 4 codes account for your revenue. What came from the consolidated fund? Now from 257 to 5 million are your revenues. And when you add this, it amounts to your NTR. But when you look at the classification in note 7, there's a contradiction. So that's why for anyone to review this NTR thing, you needed to have attached the schedules from Uganda Revenue Authority, how they generated those bank payment advice forms, so that we confirm. Are we together? Next time you provide for that, so we can appreciate what they collected, what it was termed to be.
Because they could have also declared less if the share was not there. So you provide those documents, the schedule, and then as well as the letter that you wrote in terms of
that NTR. When we receive it, for purposes of accountability, it informs us that the activities that you did. If you levied inspection fees of 450 million, that becomes an activity that you carried out. So when we go to your output, we should be able to meet those activities, because you collected this revenue on account of giving that service. So there's a relationship why we need to see that NTR and those schedules.
Secondly, honorable members, and then our technical team, when we refer to section 29 of the Public Finance Management Act and 30, I think we need some concrete interpretation in terms of that. Section 29 and then section 30. Does it apply in this particular case? Collection and deposit of revenue and retention of the revenue. Because it's very clear here, especially subsection 3 A, which says that until by the appropriation by Parliament, this is where I was trying to ask ourselves. You get what I'm saying? I said subsection 3, 29, section 3, subsection A.
Chair, this
Yes.
refers to retention of the revenues. This would have to be AIA, not NTR. This is in reference to retention.
So what we are saying is the NTR revenue?
Yes, it's revenue.
So is it different from this revenue being talked about?
No, it's not. I was just trying to differentiate between NTR and AIA. But I think they
There are
did
entities
retain the NTR.
which are permitted to collect and put that revenue to use. That's appropriation in aid. In their situation, whatever they collect must be remitted to the consolidated fund. And if they must use it, they require an appropriation. So you can see that whatever they picked, it hit the consolidated fund.
So then this still qualifies what the Auditor General has done here in terms of the actual appropriation. Which
The
is
challenge that came up is the way the system got designed. Especially when they opted that Uganda Revenue Authority should collect on behalf of these entities. And the reporting. So most of these entities are in a situation where they cannot even estimate for purposes of appropriation.
The amount of revenue that they would collect. Auditor General, you have anything to say on this?
No. Even if we actually, for the fees and the levies, we know them. But in that PBS, we cannot put it because it has been blocked. It used to be there.
Okay.
Yeah, through you, Chair, thank you again. For us, when we're looking at this particular issue, actually the challenge is not only for Ministry of Water. It cuts across most of the MDAs. The MDAs retained the budgeting function. The collection went to URA, and then direct from URA, money is remitted to the consolidated fund. However, in the system, they are unable to actually input it as a budget within the budgeting function.
So how does it become an audit query now?
So the audit query actually,
when we understand now,
we raise it across the board because it's a compliance issue. That much as these people have the function to budget, but the system does not allow them.
Okay. Yes. Clerk, can you take note of that, and then this matter is supposed to be resolved. We don't need to have it appearing here all the time when it's not actually your own making. The next item, we are revenue shortfall. We have seen here that there was a variance of about 9 billion, and is attributed because of your failure to budget properly, other than the issue of the releases from the Ministry of Finance. So you see, sometimes you need to budget effectively in order to make sure you receive all the money that you are budgeted for. So you have a variance of about 9 billion. And certainly some of the activities have been affected in your ministry. Can you comment about that, Accounting Officer?
Thank you, Chair. We budget on against the ceiling that is given to us by the Ministry of Finance, and that forms the basis of our budgeting.
But here they're warranted.
This one here, the revenue shortfall is because they did not release everything that was due to the ministry. Because we should have got 331, but what we got is only 321. And we engage with finance, and unfortunately, because of cash flow limitations, they were not able to release all the money. It is really a function of cash flow.
Mr. Chairman,
Mike?
I think to appreciate that issue, let's go to page 13.
Page 13. Statement of appropriation.
That statement of appropriation. And on that page, I don't know whether it should be Flavia to answer. I have a challenge, but Accounting Officer, you realize that your initial approved budget was 323 billion.
Yes.
And then it was revised 331. I think that is by either way of supplementary. Then you realize that government committed or warranted 321. But you actually spent 320. So the issue is that even if they had provided the 331, you would not have consumed it. Because even when they revised yours and put it up and provided 321, which was not 100% of what you required, you still did not absorb it. So to answer this matter of non-absorption, we look at the items where you underperformed. So on that same schedule of on page 13, let's go down to expenditure by nature of expenditure. That's when you'll appreciate. It should have guided you to answer. For instance, employee costs. What they gave you 22 billion.754. You spent 22.7540. So by explanation, you should have accounted for that non-absorption on employee costs. Then you probably say we over-budgeted, or I mean there must be a reason why you are given money for the employee costs and you spent less. When you go to goods and services consumed, you still consumed less than what you are given. Consumption of plant, you consumed less. Transfer to other organizations, you transferred less. Social benefits, you paid less. Other expenses, you paid less. Other expenses, the domestic areas was actual. Finance costs were so you see that difference between what you were warranted and what that should be the basis of your explanation. It should have made your work easier in that perspective.
Yeah. Chair, that is actually under item number 3 the under absorption.
We are taking it in terms of
yes.
We just do it concurrently.
Yes, we do it. So we can do it concurrently. Yes. So yes, it is true. We did not spend all the money, but again, the figures that we did not spend is actually not 1 billion. It is actually 126 million, which, if you see on page 5, it is broken down there. And the figure of 1 billion, I think it is because I think they included the total revenue, which includes the NTR, which NTR goes straight and it does not come back to us. So the total that we did not actually spend is 126 million. And rightfully, as the honorable member noted, yes, salary, we did not spend all the money because the recruitment that we anticipated, some of them came a little bit later in the year. Land, we had some residual amount that we could not spend, and then there are others. And the other one is the cultivated assets, which we also did not spend all the money. But by and large, in the rest we actually spent. So if we had all the money, I think we should have spent virtually close to nearly all the money.
Now, Mr. Accounting Officer, when you get 320,
yes,
actually 321 million,
yes,
013,
yes,
392, 213, less 320, 887, 126, 098. That is minus NTR, of course.
Is 1 billion.
You don't get 126, 266, 128.
Because it is, yeah, because spent is 320 billion 887.
Yes, that's the figure I'm talking about.
If you take from 321, that is what we get.
I can give you my calculator. Then you read me the figure that you get.
But even here it's very clear. On page 13.
No, the 10 billion is minus appropriation.
No, but
what do you get?
It is 126.
No, read the last figure.
Huh?
Read the figure.
266, 150.
And what do you have here? What do you have in your schedule? That schedule that you provided.
128.
128.
Are they the same?
They are slightly different.
Are they the same?
Why do you put that word slightly?
13 shillings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look as if it is not a serious thing.
Not rounding up. That's what is. Yeah.
So, my brother, they are. But on the same note, Chairman, maybe let's exhaust this statement. It will give us answers for the subsequent queries.
But I think, Honorable Accounting Officer,
yes.
What Honorable Mike is trying to state is that your response to the audit query in question should have captured all this. And actually is giving guidance. To me, I see as he is giving guidance to you. So that next time when you come, you cannot just make a statement which is not addressing the issues directly. Because this statement you see here is not broken down. It's incomplete. So what he's saying, I think you need to take it in good faith, because he's saying when you look at this, this explains exactly why you were not able to spend the money that you were given.
Chair, I agree, and I also acknowledge there is an error of I think 13 shillings. This is an error. Whether 1 shilling or 1 billion is an error. So there is an error of 13 shillings in this summary here in the response. Yeah.
I think what you need to do to help this committee, especially when we are going to write our report, now we have colleagues who are absent. They may not appreciate. You may need to provide us a different set of response, attributing this non-absorption to those activities that had been budgeted for and the reason why. For instance, when you say employee costs, they must be broken down in a particular note. Then we appreciate that maybe there was demise of an individual, maybe there was a workshop that didn't occur, so that we account for, because the consequence here is budgetary distortion, that the outputs you actually planned for, that were a basis for our appropriation, were not performed. So you may need to streamline that.
Yeah, that one we take note, and we'll expand the explanation and make sure that is taken care of.
Okay, I think let's take note of that on members. I don't know whether Honorable Rosemary or Honorable my brother Fred would like to introduce yourself, and then you're most welcome.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Angela Fred, MP, Moroto Municipality, and a member of this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move to the next item, item 4. Non-quantification of outputs, stock activities.
Chair, maybe.
Yes.
These unspent balances, which they are attributed to salaries. I don't know, Mr. Chairman, whether the accounting officer has an explanation. For example, to tell us that we had so many staff recruited on such a date, but they never got paid for reason A, B, like that. Because now, just to say that this was money meant for salaries, because the owners, the owners missed that salary. I don't know why you had to hold the people's salaries.
Chair,
can you respond to that?
Chair, we will provide this explanation. These are actually recruitments that did not happen at the time when they were supposed to happen. So, but we had provided for the whole year, assuming we are going to have these people on board. But they came later on in the year. And I think we'll also give you the positions that were not filled within that financial year. There could be 2 or 3 positions that were not filled because of issues, because Service Commission scheduling.
Does it include those that you had recruited but failed to enter the payroll within that particular time?
No.
Because there are entities also which had such cases of recruiting staff towards the end, and there are delays for them maybe to change from that station, their former station, to the new one, because of maybe having to make acceptance here and there, changes from the former station.
No, ours is really recruitment timing. We will provide the explanation and give, yes.
Honorable Chair.
Yes, Honorable Fred.
Thank you so much. I don't think the accounting officer also has appreciated what Honorable Tusimo was trying to highlight in here. He's trying to tell us that there was an error of 13 shillings. 13 shillings. Is that what you tried to say?
No, I own the error. I own the error. There's an error.
An own error.
Yes.
And yet unspent here reads 1.1 billion, 1.19 billion shillings. He was trying to guide you, but it's like you are reading on 2 different pages.
No, the unspent is actually 126,206,615. That is the figure. Because the other one includes the NTR, which is not really to be spent by us. Yeah. The other figure includes the NTR.
I think we have taken note of that.
Yeah.
And, but let me invite you to take tea, water, coffee. There's Mbali coffee here. Some bites. You feel free. Our colleagues our friends from that side. Let's enjoy as we move along with the meeting. So, Honorable
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Accounting Officer, I want us to flow together. Let's go back to page 13.
Page 19?
Page 13. Your statement of appropriation. Now, in that statement, I want you to look at consumption of property, plant, and equipment. You spent 230 billion. And I want you to turn to page 35. Are we on page 35? Now, page 35 is your summary statement of stores and other assets. You look at the additions that you acquired during the year was 240 billion. Are we together? Then you turn to page 22. Page 22 has a note 10 that provides for the consumption of property, plant, and equipment. Are we there? It provides for 225 billion. Then I want you to turn to page 10, which is your cash flow statement. Under cash flows from investing activities, excuse me, you look at purchase of plant, property, and equipment. You have 192 billion. So, Mr. Chairman, these 4 pages must talk to each other. Unless there was a misclassification. On your statement of stores, which actually is a record, is your entry record of your assets, you have 240 billion. In the statement of appropriation, you have a different figure. In the cash flow statement, it's a different figure. In the note that provides for a breakdown of that, you have a different figure.
You talk of.
Maybe is better positioned.
Yes, by the time of signing this account, I was not around. So I delegated her as accounting officer formally. Yeah, so that is how she signed. Yeah. Yes. And the responsibility is still here. So, Erisa and Wanogwan, can you throw more light?
Through accounting officer, shall we ask for some time to have a look at these contradictions, then we will get back to you. We can't right now exactly tell what the issue is.
You are the author of these. Well, I have no problem with having time to. Let's go back and identify more so that you can note them down. Let's go to domestic areas paid on page 13. Now, Mr. Chairman, on the domestic areas paid, I'm going to relate them to page 32, which is your statement of outstanding commitments. Are we there?
Page 32.
Page 32. Excuse me. That's your statement of outstanding commitments. There are two questions here. The first one is that at the beginning of that financial year, you had an outstanding commitment of 47 billion, which apparently you did not budget for. When you got to your statement of appropriation, you did not budget for those domestic areas. Number two, you provided for those adjustments. I want you to look at...
Which page is that?
Page 32.
Page 32.
I want you to look at column 2, adjustments to the previous year's commitment. Are you there?
Yes.
And I want you to look at the running total. And you tell me why you excluded the 7 billion and the 102.
7 billion, they write down. The 7 billion is what they wrote down.
Are you noting? Then we got to your cash flow statement on page 10. On page 10. Are you there?
Yes.
How much domestic areas did you pay?
$34.1 billion and 102 million.
34.1
billion.
Now, in your statement of appropriation, you indicate 102. Where did you get the 34 billion that you paid, which you had not budgeted for?
Okay. Yeah. So, I think, Chair and members, the 34, because the nature of the projects we do run, they are multi-year projects. So what is really categorized as arrears are also works in progress. And this is also an issue which we want to actually have it addressed, and these things should be categorized properly. Because if I'm constructing, for example, the waterworks in Isinjio, I will start this year, it is going to run for 3 years.
By the way,
yes.
I will fire the waterworks in Isinjio.
I said if it is coming. So now, at the end of the year, there's some works done, and probably we have certificates that we have not yet paid for. We have not paid for. Those are actually taken as arrears, and rightfully they are arrears. But what we are saying is that there should be allowance so that this is categorized, because the ones which are running, although they are arrears, and the instruction from the PSSC is that these actually arrears take a first call. So we cannot keep them and not pay them. So we pay them, but then we have to reflect them because they came out of what was classified as arrears. So that is really the challenge.
And accountant general. May I have it here?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Through you again. we also looked at this issue, but again, like the accounting officer is explaining, we realized that what they provided for in the budget was only in relation to salary, payroll, which is the 102. And then the other one, they charged it as a first call circular. So indeed, it's true, some of that payment, actually the 34 was going to domestic areas, but it was not categorized as domestic areas. Yes.
And again, Chair, for arrears, actually, we get the specific amount to budget from finance.
Maybe just, Chair, we also looked at a circular from PSST that was actually telling them DS that they should use the current budget to pay the areas as a first call circular. And in that regard, that's why we agreed with management.
You see, there's no way you can have an entry in your cash flow statement of areas that you paid that were not provided for. That's the contradiction of you. So you take note.
That one.
Let me share with you more. I want you to look at your cash flow statement. Do you see, are you there? On page 10. On page 10, I want you to look at the 575 million shillings. You put it under revenue from operating activities. Now, that 575 million in your statement of change of equity, you categorized it as transfers to the consolidated fund account as a balance of the previous year. Are we there? Here, you entered it as advances recovered. The cash flow statement. Yet, I should have expected it to be a receivable. So let's go to note 19. It's on page 24. So help me to explain that money. Because here
251.
The 575.
Okay. I think let the AC accounts explain.
You can try.
Not try, explain.
Chair, through PS, maybe if I can give a background on that 575. This was a letter of credit opened in favor, opened by the former UNUMA before it got detached from the ministry. A letter of credit which was opened but not written into our account. So what we did this time round, we wanted to, like the honorable member has explained, we had to bring it in our accounts as a receivable by debiting accounts receivable
and credit statement show changes in equity to bring it into our accounts during that final year. And since it performed, the money was returned to the consolidated fund. We had again to credit the receivable, take away the receivable, again through statement of changes and equity, and write down the receivables.
I failed to find it in your stock of receivables. I also failed to find it in your letters of credit. In fact, your schedule for letters of credit is nil. Was it an entry problem?
I think it was the prior year.
Yeah, because it would have indicated even for the prior year. It provides for the same. My brother, talk to your documents. If you find, you see those receivables in 2018 were nil by note 19. And if you realize that there is a challenge, concede very fast and we go.
Yeah.
Then you
Yes,
just 1 minute.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, what Honorable Mike has raised concerning these advances recovered. Now, on page 10, the figure is 575. But on page 34, the figure is 251. Now, as you...
24. On page 24.
Okay, on page 24, the figure of advances is 251. Maybe as you try to explain, you also tell us why the difference, why we have 275 and why 251.
Yeah, you see, the 575 really was a letter of credit, which was opened, it expired, and the funds were returned, went back to the consolidated fund. But it had not been recorded. It was not recognized. So now, when we became aware of it, and I think the statement from the consolidated fund is also available. This particular transaction was actually, like if you look at it in 2018, you don't see it there. You don't see it there. So now it is actually correcting an omission of the previous years. And the 102 that you asked about, it is also a domestic areas of 17, 18 that was not recognized, and then we are bringing it back together with another 170,000, which was withholding tax on an invoice that was cancelled, but it had already been captured. So it is really correction of of those errors that happened prior years.
Before we went on this issue of advances, there was the issue of domestic areas paid, a figure of 34.
Yes.
Where the accounting officer told us that this money was for ongoing projects. Now, can you avail the committee with a schedule of those ongoing projects so that we know which company are you owing and how much?
Okay. That will do, Chair.
You see on your cash flow statement, you go down before total payments of operating activities. Do you see those letters of credit receivable? You see it? I would have had that figure in the negatives. That 570. I would have had it in negatives to match your statement of change of equity.
You mean the net decrease?
Am I right or am not? Those are entry errors that you need to go on because 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 that you need to